Hello, everybody. Henry over here, coming at you with another workout video. I'm overdubbing this one, or voiceover in this one, however you want to call it. But yeah, today we have a nice at-home back workout. Over here, I'm trying to simulate a little bit of a combo of as if I was doing a deadlift with like a lifting of stone. Trying to get a little bit of both. Um, you can do these whenever you are short of like a bar and whatnot, as I am now, which I will talk about in later videos. But this is a really good alternative, to still work it back um, nicely in sort of like a little bit of a deadlift manner, which I really like to do. So I came up with doing these. Um, But yeah, you want to be careful with these. You might be inclined to think that what you have to be careful is your back, and of course you do. You have to make sure that you are bracing properly and whatnot. Remember that the deadlift is not, uh, we're not trying to row, right? We're not trying to pull with our arms or anything like it's still, the deadlift. It is hip hinge movement. So trying to focus on the hips, bringing those forward, and as much as you would do with the deadlift, we need to try to just let our arms sort of just hang and serve as just like to hold the weight itself. So what I was saying is that you might be inclined to think that you need to be careful with the back here, but what you really need to keep an eye out for is the biceps. You are not trying to bicep curl this weight. Be careful. You might even see me do it. I'm not perfect and whatnot, or maybe I feel like the disc or the plates are slipping or something. But you really, really have to be careful with not not trying to bicep curl this weight. You know, in the same manner that when you're doing a deadlift or any sort of row with a bar and whatnot, you're trying to tuck in the elbows and pull the elbows, make them touch, your lats towards your back. You're not trying to bicep curl this way, right? You don't try to bicep curl. Let's say you're deadlifting with double, you know, underhand grip. You're not trying to curl that weight up. That's how you get a bicep tear. You know, same with, any other sort of row movement, military rows and whatnot. You're not trying to bicep curl that weight. You're trying to just use your arms to just pull and use your lats, you know, try to stretch the lats nicely. You can see that to try to make the most out of this exercise, I'm rolling my back a little bit more just so that I can stretch out and sort of squeeze as much as I can from my back muscles with this exercise. All right, so moving on, we got a little bit more of a like another version. Uh, I would call these like plate rows, I guess you can call them. But yeah, this is more of like I'm trying to simulate. I like to do pendulum rows with the bar. I like how those feel, and I'm trying to sort of simulate that sort of back stimulation, but obviously with uh, some sort of adjustment because of obviously the conditions of the positioning and whatnot, and how the exercise itself changes when you're doing it this way. But yeah, same thing goes over here, trying to you know lift the weight up, row it with our elbows, trying to stretch out my back as much as I can, bracing as much as I can, keep a tight core so that, your back is as stabilized as possible so you can just focus on the stretch on the way down and pull aggressively or as aggressive as you can, right? But really, really just focusing on that squeeze and stretch on our way back down. I found these to be pretty stimulating for the back. I liked them very much. But yeah, I think I got another set of these or another one. But I'll touch base on the next exercise.
And right now, it's being actively destroyed. Welcome home. Today's video is a little different. Aboriginal Australian history and archaeology is a vital and active part of the country. And as we speak, as you're watching this, it is actively fading away. Among the oldest surviving human artworks on Earth, Murujuga in Australia's Dampier Archipelago is a little bit of magic in our modern world. But it sits unprotected, dangerously exposed. The site is a sprawling rocky landscape filled with more than 1 million individual engravings or petroglyphs carved into the rocks, some dated as far back as 50,000 years. There's nothing like this anywhere else in the world. And these petroglyphs are quite literally a look into the past. Some of these carvings depict animals that are now extinct, like the thylacine, and weapons and tools that are no longer used. There are geometric patterns and the oldest known art of human faces anywhere in the world. I cannot express how insanely beautiful this site is, but how meaningful it is. This art provides a direct link to stories, customs, and knowledge of the Aboriginal people. It's estimated that up to 25% of the rock art on Murujuga has been impacted in some way by the industry that continues to be developed here. The engravings on these rocks now have no chance of being seen in their natural landscape. There have been major gas plant facilities operating in Murujuga for decades, and these have changed the stones. The patina, the dark outer layer that once preserved and defined the petroglyphs, is now fading as the pH levels on the rocks become more and more acidic. Rock surfaces are becoming brittle and porous and pale. Lines that have endured since the Ice Age are beginning to dissolve in front of our eyes. Why does one of the world's greatest cultural assets and most sacred places have to carry the burden of its country's industrialization? You cannot place industry within a landscape like this. But the Australian government has allowed rapid development here for decades, and it has no intention of stopping. In the last couple of weeks, Australia's government just approved the extension of one of the world's largest gas facilities, Woodside, up until 2070. Woodside was only supposed to run until 2030 to try and meet Australia's net zero emissions by 2050 goal, but that has been revised, and now Woodside is able to operate until 2070. This was Environment Minister Murray Watt's first major decision in his new role. Woodside operates just 8 kilometres from where the rocks lay at Murujuga. This area of Australia, the Northwest Shelf, is already the country's third highest emitting facility, producing roughly 6 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions every year. And this is not a necessary expansion. And it could have been rejected under Australian law on the grounds that it would impact native species and cultural heritage, but it wasn't. Over the past 6 years, there's been a team of scientists monitoring the site to determine whether the pollution created...
All right, so moving on to my last exercise, I think. And, I'm just trying to create, try to come up with different variations of row movements and whatnot, because, again, like I said, they're sort of like my favorite when it comes to the back development and whatnot. And over here I have, a different, sort of like a deficit sort of row with some 25-pound plates on each hand, and just trying to get that nice stretch, get as many muscles as possible, stretched out nicely, and really trying to make sure that I'm sort of like engaging in that sort of mind muscle connection, so that I'm sort of like displacing the movement throughout the back as much as I can, so that I can work as many muscles as possible. Again, this is a nice at-home workout that you can do if you have some plates laying around or a box. You don't even need the plates that I'm using to create the deficit. You can use a chair or a table or something like that. There's many different ways that you can do this. I'm just using my plates, my bumper plates, to create that deficit. But And you can also, if you have, you can do this with dumbbells as well. You know, if you have a nice set of dumbbells and you have a chair or something like that, like a good chair where you can stand up and whatnot, like you got this. Or you can even do these at the corner of your bed, to be quite honest. So it's all about trying to get creative and whatnot. This is the kind of back day that I'm gonna be doing for a bit. Um, because, like I said, I don't have the old equipment that I used to have. Uh, but as you can see, I'm not trying to not make excuses and still get it going over here. And but because I am going to be making some life changes that I will be talking about later, I will not buy any more equipment, you know, because I'm not going to need it where I will be. I'm planning on moving and I'm not going to need it where I'm planning on going. So yeah, just trying to, I'm just giving you, this sort of like side note, sort of that you can sort of relate. If you're at home, if you don't have much equipment and whatnot, I know it can be expensive. Um, but you can, there's different things that you can do. Just if you have you know, um, those 25-pound plates, or if you have, 25-pound dumbbells, or you have any other sort of dumbbells with whatever weight you have and whatnot. You can even do these if you have one plate or one dumbbell, you can do these like one side at a time as well. Obviously, it would take longer, but hey, we're trying to make it wet stew. Um, but yeah, you can, it could be as easy as just going to Walmart, buying one or two plates, and you're set. You know, here's your back workout, so to speak, because you can do the what I was doing at the beginning with those as well. The sort of deadlift variation, grabbing them underneath. You can get a bumper plate to do that as well at your home and whatnot. You can put like a book or something like that so that you can get your hands under it. Over here, I was using one of these 25 pump plates to sort of create that little bit of a finger space so that I can get my fingers under the plates and get them up. But you can try this. It's pretty straightforward at home workout. For our backs. And obviously, as one might, evolve and get better, you can increase the reps, you can slow down the movement so that you increase time on attention and whatnot. But yeah, touch base with you later. All right, so last exercise, pull-ups. I do underhand grip, the most comfortable that I can do right now. I suck at these, but yeah, do as many as you can. I did 3 sets of 5, and that's the back workout that I'm doing. Peace.